Today, we're diving into a massive issue rocking the gaming industry, and it's something you need to know. With layoffs hitting hard, top-tier studios are facing major cuts, and it seems like Sony, one of the biggest players in the game, is not immune. Why is this happening, and how does it affect the future of gaming? Stick with us, because we're going to break it down from every angle. No sugarcoating, just the facts. Before we jump in, if you're passionate about gaming, anime, movies, and everything nerdy, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming up next. Also, check out the description for an exclusive Green Man Gaming discount. Save big on your next game purchase. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The gaming industry is in serious trouble. We're seeing more and more reports of layoffs from major studios, and it's hard to ignore how the industry's issues are stacking up. The problem isn't just that games are getting worse, it's that the people making them are being pushed out. And no, it's not just a case of developers losing their jobs because of bad luck or market conditions. It's the result of systemic issues plaguing the industry for years. These problems, however, are now reaching a tipping point, and we're left with a wave of employees being shown the door. We've all seen the headlines: Game Studio X announces layoffs. And sadly, the trend has been accelerating. From big-budget studios to smaller indie outfits, many are cutting their workforce to stay afloat. And it's no coincidence that some of the biggest names in the industry are at the center of these cuts. We're talking about studios that, just a few years ago, were at the top of the gaming world. Now, these same companies are scrambling to stay relevant while bleeding talent. The main issue: mismanagement. Developers are no longer in tune with their audience. Instead of focusing on delivering high-quality games, some studios are now preoccupied with trying to push political messages or follow the latest industry trends without regard for what players actually want. And let's be real, when gameplay takes a backseat to ideological goals, the result is almost always a flop. Players are feeling it too. Instead of fun, immersive games, we're getting unfinished products that barely meet expectations. Graphics might look shiny, but if the core gameplay is broken, it doesn't matter how good the visuals are. The games themselves are underwhelming, and fans are becoming disillusioned. As a result, studios are seeing a dramatic decrease in player engagement, and unfortunately, layoffs are often the consequence when a studio's sales don't meet projections. Now, let's zero in on one of the companies that's been struggling big time in recent months: Sony. The tech giant, known for PlayStation, has been hit hard by a series of layoffs. This isn't the first time either. In 2023, Sony already laid off nearly 10% of its workforce, cutting over 900 jobs, including the closure of London studios. But it doesn't end there. In the most recent wave of cuts, Sony has reportedly let go of many employees from PlayStation Visual Arts and PlayStation Studio Malaysia. These are not small studios either. These teams have been responsible for critical aspects of PlayStation's game development. The news was confirmed by a former project manager at PlayStation Visual Arts, who now works at Riot Games. He revealed that a significant number of veteran developers were among those laid off, including people with decades of experience in the industry. It's a tough blow, especially considering how much talent these teams brought to the table. The former project manager said it was heartbreaking to receive messages from former colleagues, many of whom had dedicated years of their lives to PlayStation. Today's layoffs were a hard blow. PlayStation Visual Arts dismissed developers with decades of experience in their fields, talents that will be extremely difficult to replace, he shared. Now, we don't have all the details yet on the exact number of layoffs, but the message is clear. Sony is trimming its workforce in response to ongoing financial pressures. And while we can't blame the staff for these cuts, we can certainly point to some of the decisions that led to them. One possible cause for the layoffs is the cancellation of several major projects, including live service games. One key example is the canceled project from Band Studios, the developers behind Days Gone. PlayStation Visual Arts played a major role in this project, providing support for animation and technical work, and the cancellation seems to have hit them hard. The failure of this game to live up to expectations has caused a ripple effect throughout Sony. When a project fails, it's often the employees who bear the brunt of it, despite their best efforts. Let's dive deeper into the live service games issue because it's a huge part of why we're seeing such layoffs. Sony, like many other major studios, believe that live service games, titles that require ongoing updates, live events, and a constant connection to online play, were the future. They've made huge investments in this area, hoping to build games that could bring in steady revenue long after launch. But the results have been underwhelming at best. Take Concord, for example. This live service game had all the potential in the world, but it failed spectacularly. Launched and shut down within just 2 weeks. The gameplay was lackluster, the mechanics outdated, and players didn't feel any real incentive to keep playing. For a live service game to work, it needs a dedicated player base, but Concord couldn't even hold on for a month. And that's not the only failure. Sony recently canceled 9 live service games, including highly anticipated titles like The Last of Us online multiplayer and Spider-Man. The Great Web, a multiplayer Spider-Man game. While these projects might have sounded interesting in theory, they were missing something crucial. They didn't align with what Sony does best. Sony has always been a leader in single-player, narrative-driven games. So why shift focus to live service games, especially when their past experiences show they excel in delivering incredible single-player experiences? As Concord clearly showed, trying to force a game model that doesn't fit with your brand is a recipe for disaster. The decision to cancel these games was a smart one, but it came at a cost. The failure of these projects left Sony with no choice but to cut back, and unfortunately, employees were the ones who paid the price. Let's talk about what PlayStation, and the gaming industry as a whole, should focus on moving forward. The answer is simple: single-player games. PlayStation has always been known for delivering some of the best single-player experiences out there, from God of War to The Last of Us, Spider-Man, and more. These games have set the standard for what a great single-player experience can be. Why then is Sony trying to force live service games down our throats? They've already shown that they can dominate the single-player space, so why move away from that? It seems like PlayStation is finally waking up to this reality, as their recent strategy shift suggests they're putting more emphasis on high-quality, narrative-driven games. This is the right move, and they're starting to see the benefits. After all, single-player experiences are where Sony has always excelled, and they've built an incredible library of exclusive titles that fans love. The shift away from live service games is a turning point for the industry. Sony's decision to refocus on single-player games isn't just about saving money or protecting their reputation. It's about understanding what works. And it's not just Sony. We're seeing other developers and publishers, like Capcom and Square Enix, doubling down on their single-player games with huge success. Monster Hunter, World, Stellar Blade, and other single-player focused titles are thriving, while live service games continue to struggle. But let's be clear, the problem with live service games isn't the idea itself, it's the execution. A live service game needs to offer players more than just a few hours of content. It needs to provide ongoing, meaningful experiences that keep people coming back. If developers can't deliver on that promise, the games will fail. And that's exactly what we've seen time and time again. So while some live service games have succeeded, many have flopped, and we're seeing the fallout from those failures now. To wrap things up, the gaming industry is going through a difficult phase, and the layoffs we're seeing are a symptom of a larger problem. Poor decisions, failed projects, and a lack of focus on what matters have led to this crisis. But Sony's recent shift back to single-player games is a step in the right direction. They've learned from their mistakes, and hopefully, this will lead to better, more focused games in the future. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Sony's recent layoffs and their shift away from live service games? Do you think the industry is heading in the right direction, or are there bigger issues that need to be addressed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about all this? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's get the conversation going. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest in gaming, anime, movies, and everything nerdy. And hey, if you're looking to save on your next game, check out the link in the description or pinned comment for an exclusive 15% discount at Green Man Gaming. You don't want to miss it.